What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin Robbie Billups, and it is Friday, and that means it's time for the Rex and Robbie Show. Let's bring him in. What's up, Rex?
What's up, Robbie? What's going on, my friend? Did you watch
Sitting here.
that ugly game last night?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Did you watch the ugly game last night?
No, but I heard about it. We were doing a review on She-Hulk last night. Finally, Daredevil showed up, but I heard was just like I heard people saying that Amazon needs to pay them because they watched the game. Then you give everybody a free month of Amazon Prime.
It was the Colts actually ended up coming out with the W, but it was ugly. Oh my God. It was one of those games where you're just sitting there going, is this going to end? I mean, this is just no touchdown scored. I was just brutal, dude. It was bad. It was
that
really
sounds
bad. Figure drawing. Zahak, what's up?
Yeah, what is up, everybody? Appreciate you being here. Figure Drawing says Werewolf by Night was cool. I was happy that I wasn't let down. That's cool. I haven't watched it yet. We will be covering that tonight on PCP Movie Night. We're doing a special bonus episode of Horror Fest for Werewolf by Night. That will be 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. But since it's the day that Werewolf by Night debuts in the MCU, we decided let's talk about werewolf movies. What about you, Rex? What's your history with werewolf movies?
So yeah, figure drawing. I know Russell Wilson looks like crap. Man, did they overpay for him? So it was interesting when you sent this over, and I had to go back and do my little bit of research. I realized that through the years, I have not really been drawn to werewolf movies. In this genre, I'm more of the vampire guy, and that might just be because I thought about it for a few minutes, before the show started. Maybe it's because, the problem with werewolves is that there's a limit to what you can do in a movie. I mean, I've seen some good ones, and I have them. Gustavo, what's going on, buddy? It's just that that once you turn into the werewolf, there isn't much except, rampaging and you're basically a big dog and that type of thing. Whereas vampires, they have a personality, even though they're vampires, and you can explore that. It gives you more latitude. But Gustavo, you've already got one on my list, obviously. But yeah, so I realized that through the years, so I have some interesting selections though, because I'm not necessarily drawn to werewolf movies.
Yeah,
I tend to have some interesting choices.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm almost going to guarantee you did not watch.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm excited.
I might be wrong.
I'm very excited to see what your list is going to be. Me personally, I love werewolf movies, but I do find myself kind of often disappointed. I do think when you're thinking of things like mad scientists or vampires or ghosts or demons or anything like that, like I can think of more movies that are like at the peak right now. There are a lot of werewolf movies I love, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're super great movies or anything like that. But I got a giant list. I'm ready for this, bro. So
but you know why I think that is though? With a werewolf movie, once you wolf out, what is there really to do? It is to run around and kill people,
Yeah.
And,
some of these movies will like go into, and going all the way back to the Wolfman, the idea of the tortured man behind the wolf, right? So that's the majority of the movie. But the biggest thing, and remember in the 80s, there was a big wave of, we can say werewolf films, but in general, shape-shifting tales. Because we also had, what's the one with Malcolm McDowell where he's like in love with his sister? Is that Cat's Eye or something? Or is that the remake of Cat People? I don't remember. Anyway.
I don't remember.
So there's that. But that was because, those effects were really coming up. So werewolf movies have to lean very heavily on effects. And the transformation is always like the big money shot of any werewolf film, going all the way back to like Werewolf of London, which may be the first one. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, again, I think that there have been some good ones. All right. And Gustavo brought one up, Silver Bullet, obviously. I really love that movie. I remember going to the movie theater, not really sure what we were getting. All right. It's Stephen King, right? So Stephen King, no matter what they produced, there was an interest in it. So you would go and watch because it's Stephen King. I don't know if I really watched it because it was about werewolves. I haven't seen it in years, Zahak, so I'm not sure what you really mean that it didn't age well. Because the parts that I still remember, Gary Busey, obviously he's kind of checked out lately. Another guy that can't seem to get out of his own way. But I thought he played a great role as the uncle. Something I'll never forget was the fumbling of the revolver and trying to get the bullet in there and the true sheer panic that he had. You know, I thought he did a great job. You know, in that sense, playing the protective uncle who was kind of a clown and you know so on and so forth and
he made him that badass wheelchair, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was kind of like it was kind of like that movie Uncle Buck, but only in a horror version, sort of, right? Yeah. You know, I liked the way the story unfolded. It turned out to be the minister and all that good stuff. You know, so it was just well done. It was a classic, well done. I felt like Stephen King horror film.
Yeah,
you know? And that was the reason I watched it. You know,
I really do like Silver Bullet. It is kind of cheesy in certain elements. I love some of the subtlety of it. Like there's the subtle story of Gary Busey's character overcoming his alcohol addiction.
Yeah, right.
Like that's in there. And so I like a lot of that. And I love, you know, it's that whole Stephen King small town hypocrisy kind of thing, right? He's playing with that. But what we always like to goof on and over at Dylan's Horror Show in particular is that as much as we love Silver Bullet, when he turns into the werewolf, we're like, that looks like a dude in a bear suit.
Yeah, you know, and that was the other part was there was not a lot of wolf scenes, you know, not clear wolf scenes. So I just felt it was a good movie overall. I liked the acting. I thought the acting was good.
I think one of the best scenes in that movie is the dream sequence where they show the whole town, like in that church, I think, or something, like turning and like that's a really cool scene.
Yes. Jake Brown, what's going on? Yeah, I would say that was Gary Busey at his best before he kind of checked out on us. You know, he really did a phenomenal job. Just the character he played, the fear, it was genuine. You could feel it, you know, that the suspense that he created. So it was a well done film. Figure drawing. Russell Wilson was not overpaid. Have you seen something to keep you guys? Well, I don't know. Figure drawing, the way he's paying, he's been overpaid, man. I'm telling you straight up, man. I don't know if you saw last night's game, but good call there, Russell. Like you didn't get burned on this before. 4th and 1. Let's pass. Okay, right at the end zone. Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe was not such a good call after it cost you the Super Bowl with the Seahawks. But I digress. So, yeah, Silver Bullets won, but you know, again, I don't feel like I was drawn to it because it was a werewolf movie. At that point in time in my life, I was a huge Stephen King fan. So if there was a movie and it was a story, you know, based on a Stephen King book, I'm there, no matter what. You know, because he was such a great he's such a great writer. All right. So what about you? Let's hear one from your list.
Well, first of all, Manny, I used to confuse Gary Busey and Nick Nolte all the time when I was a kid.
I do too. I was going to say Nick Nolte. I swear. I don't know what that is. Okay. But to be clear, Nick Nolte, long beard, but right now, but not crazy.
Yeah.
Gary Busey.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Gary Busey's been a slow descent, I think, for a while.
Yeah. I clearly there's something there's I hate to use this, but there's a kind of an Ezra Miller effect going on there. I feel like, you know.
Oh, maybe. All right, for me, I got a big list, obviously, and I'm almost hesitant because I don't want to like take anything that's on your list. So I'm going to go with something that I think maybe is not on your. I'm not sure, but
I really think we're only going to have one crossover. That's my prediction.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, I will start with what is my favorite werewolf film of all time, which is The Wolfman from 1941.
The original, starring Lon Chaney Jr. I love that film. It's that is where all of the werewolf lore that we know, that's where it all comes from. The silver bullet, well, they didn't use silver bullets. They used the silver cane handle or whatever. But the idea of silver, the idea of transforming at the full moon, all this kind of stuff, that all is created by, was it Kurt Sidemak or something? The writer of that screenplay created all of that because back in the day, the folklore of lycanthropy and werewolfism, it's more tied into like vampirism too. Like vampires and werewolves are almost like the same kind of entity in folklore. Right. Because you remember vampires, part of their thing is they change into a wolf. So there is lycanthropy and all that kind of stuff in folklore, but the rules of werewolfism as we know it today in popular culture, that was created in The Wolfman. Lon Chaney Jr., a hell of a performance, and Jack Pierce, the amazing makeup effects. I think that movie is awesome. I got to be honest with you. I don't remember the film. I haven't seen it in years. My mom was a big fan of films of that era, and obviously it was on TV by that point. So I'm sure I've seen it, because if it was on TV, my mom would have watched it, and then I would have been forced to watch it, because that was back in the days when every family had one TV, and it was black and white anyway. So I'm sure I've seen it, but I really don't remember it. But I do remember it's a classic, like kind of like Nosferatu, kind of, started that genre for everybody in a sense. Although Bram Stoker originally through Dracula established most of the lore on vampires for us today.
Yeah, I would definitely, well, and Carmilla before that, but I would definitely suggest at some point, maybe, when you have a nice quiet night, like pour you a nice glass of whiskey or a beer or something, and just cozy up and rewatch that old school Wolfman. I think you're going to find it holds immensely well. The performances, Claude Rains is brilliant in it. Lon Chaney's brilliant. And the way it's shot is...
Claude Rains, I remember, because he was in Robin Hood with Errol Flynn. That was another one of my mom's favorite movies. So
he's also fantastic in The Invisible Man from back in the day.
Yes. That was another one my mom loved. But Gustavo Zahak, you guys got one on my list already. So...
Oh, I know which one you're talking about, I bet.
It's Teen Wolf, right? Teen Wolf. Again, you're going to see that my choices, they don't really have to do with werewolves. It has to do with something else that I saw that movie. So Teen Wolf, at that point, Michael J. Fox was at the height of his career, really. Okay, I think the number one, and I saw this in my research when I was looking up movies, the number one and number two films of that year was Teen Wolf was number two. Number one was Back to the Future. All right. So, that was what Michael J. Fox is in it. I love the movie. It was a completely different spin on the whole werewolf story, teenager in high school and dealing with this. They turned it into kind of a puberty issue, right? And then it turns out the parents are werewolves. He never knew. And the whole movie was just so well done. And obviously it's spun off a TV series. So
I remember the animated series they had. I used to watch that for a while. And I actually am one of those people who love Teen Wolf 2 with Jason Bateman as the cousin to Michael J. Fox's character. But this time he's a boxer instead of a...
I watched it. I don't know. That was the only thing that kind of went wrong. Clearly, Michael J. Fox as a person could not play basketball on any level. Okay. That's the part that I remember. But not really a true werewolf film in that sense. It is a comedy about a family and a young man going through puberty who happens to be a werewolf.
Yeah. Okay? Well, and that's, we were talking about the werewolf films and all that kind of stuff. And one of the werewolf tropes that it's been carved out over the decades is the teenage werewolf story. And the, the analogy there to puberty, right? That's there all the way back to, I was a teenage werewolf, I think with Michael Landon is in that one, if I remember correctly. And then Larry Cohen's Full Moon High kind of does the same thing. So, and then Teen Wolf just took that. And I think really, especially like you said, with the success of Michael J. Fox at that time, I loved Teen Wolf. That was one of my favorite movies, man. Loved it. That's a good pick.
I did too.
That's a good one.
All the viewers are naming just about everything on my list, except for there are going to be a couple that I very, very much doubt that you or anybody else will have on their list.
All right. My next one I'll go with is a Joe Dante classic. It's The Howling. I absolutely love The Howling.
I think somebody brought that one up.
Yes, it's been brought up tonight, and I love it. So Joe Dante is one of my favorite horror directors. He did Gremlins, he did Piranha, he did Looney Tunes Back in Action, and Small Soldiers. But I love Joe Dante's work. He's kind of got this. Usually he's got this kind of fun, cartoony kind of tongue-in-cheekness to it. But The Howling is straight up early 80s slasher movie. And they even were hiding the idea that it was a werewolf film in the marketing at the time. And when you watch it at first, it presents itself just like any of those kind of sleazy, kind of trashy slasher films of the early 80s. It's got that vibe. Then they go to that basically that cult, the cult of werewolves. And the transformation is amazing. Now, it came out the same year as American Werewolf in London. They both have amazing transformations, but the way that it's handled in The Howling, it's darker. It feels almost more visceral to me, more scary, more atmospheric. And Robert Picardo, his performance in that as the slasher main werewolf dude is amazing. I love that movie so much, even when it's super cheesy when Dee Wallace at the end turns into a werewolf live on TV and she looks like a like a Cocker Spaniel or something. It's really weird, but I love The Howling. I think that's a solid movie.
What's interesting is I don't think I ever saw it, because and I think because you just mentioned it, it came out the same year as American Werewolf in London. So American Werewolf in London is on the top of my list. So because it's already been mentioned, so I'm gonna throw it out there.
Nice.
And again, I'm not drawn to the werewolf movies. Do you want to know why a whole bunch of me and my friends went to see American Werewolf in London with no idea what we're going to expect? Turned out to be an excellent film. The transformation, just even the hairs were just phenomenal. We were very, very pleasantly surprised. But you want to know why we went to see it?
Why?
Because we wanted to see the Dr. Pepper dude in a horror film.
He
was the Dr. He was on TV almost every other commercial. You know, Be a Pepper or whatever the song was, and he'd be on TV all over the place. And all of a sudden, American Werewolf in London comes out. They're promoting the film, and everybody's like, "Wow, that's a Dr. Pepper dude."
Yeah, that's
so
hilarious.
Again. Yeah, I was not drawn to it, but went in there kind of like Silver Bullet. I was there for an entirely different purpose, but walked out very, very happy. Very pleasantly surprised. It was had a good time. It was a good movie. That was just a well done movie. That movie, I think, felt like it could, my love for vampire films, I think they were able to incorporate that. There was just enough wolfing out, and the wolfing out scenes were just phenomenal for the special effects at the time. Just watching them wolf out. And they focused on that, and then the running around and causing rampage was not quite as long as some other movies. But most of it dealt with the character himself, his struggles and figuring it out and all that. So I thought that probably, and I thought cinematically it was well shot as well.
Yeah, I love it. So John Landis, who's known for a lot of comedies as well, including Blues Brothers and Vacation, did a phenomenal job of making this movie very honest as far as the character work goes. The characters feel very real, right?
Yes.
The makeup effects by Rick Baker. Not only the werewolf stuff, which still maintains as like one of the best, most impactful transformation scenes ever. I mean, The Howling and A Werewolf in London came out in 1981, and they ain't topped those movies with they just seem to get worse at times. Rick Baker did an amazing job on those effects. He also did the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro. He did the makeup effects on that one too. And the Buddy, who every time we see him is slowly decaying more, this like spirit or whatever. I love that look. It's so freaking good.
Well done. It was just a well done movie.
And a really funny movie, and it's got a good pace. And it's got that core, like, kind of love story there that really ends in tragedy.
So officially unofficial geek. That's funny that you mentioned it. Actually, I think Robbie was going to do that, but then given that Werewolf by Night was being released, he figured to switch to Werewolf. So we probably will do that, a vampire review somewhere down the line. That could go. We might have to bump it an hour. The list is going to be so long.
All right, next one I want to highlight then is Ginger Snaps. Have you ever seen that one?
I have not.
Ginger Snaps is a really, really solid movie. It came out like in 2000. I just recently watched it. I always just kind of skipped over it because I was like, they're not doing werewolf movies good anymore. So, but no, it's really good. It's about these two sisters. They kind of have like a troubled home life. They're like, so as the one sister's getting older and maybe like experimenting more with like boys and alcohol and stuff like that, the younger sister starts feeling kind of left out or whatnot. And then, of course, werewolf stuff happens, and it's tied into the idea of women starting to like go through puberty as well. So it's like that teenage werewolf thing almost that we were talking about with Teen Wolf and the puberty aspect, but on the side of a woman, right? So it's a really, really good film, and I haven't seen it near enough to really have everything soaked into my head, but I've seen it a couple times, and I love that movie. It is so freaking good. I highly recommend that one, Rex.
I'll have to check that one out. But I am so behind on streaming and everything else.
Right? Aren't we all?
I wasted 2 hours last night watching that horrible game. Should have been streaming.
That's on you, brother.
All right. So this one, I'm going to guess, is on no one's list. Okay. And I'll explain the reason why I watched this film as well. It was actually a Japanese movie called Wolf Guy. And it starred Sonny Chiba. All right. And I was a huge Sonny Chiba fan in the 70s, right? So I'd watch all his movies. So the reason I watched this movie was because of Sonny Chiba. He was in it. And for the viewers out there, you're probably going to best remember Sonny Chiba. He was in Kill Bill. He was Henzo the sword maker. Okay. That was like one of his final roles. And the funny thing is, it's called Wolf Guy, and he would get the powers of a werewolf during certain cycles of the moon. But he would just gain superpowers. So he never wolfed out. There was no wolfing out. So it was kind of a martial arts film, whatever, you catch bullets, whatever. But it is, it is technically a werewolf film, but not in the classic sense. And again, I watched the film mainly because of Sonny Chiba at the time.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds, is it good or is it like cheesy good?
It's typical 70s kind of martial artsy kind of movie. But if you enjoy that genre, it's one of the better ones, I think.
It's called Wolf Guy?
Wolf Guy. And it
Wolf
stars
Guy.
Sonny Chiba.
All right. I'm putting that on the list to be perpetually behind on. So another one I want to highlight is a Hammer film that I absolutely love. It's Curse of the Werewolf, starring Oliver Reed. It's like, I'm pretty sure it's from the 60s, maybe 70s, but I loved that film. It was when I first started discovering the Hammer films, and it was like, man, these are like the Universal ones I love, but they're in color and they got like beautiful women and blood and all that kind of stuff. I was like, man, this is like a level up, right? This was their werewolf film, and I loved it. It's really weird. It tries to do something different with werewolf mythology. So it's about, okay, so there's a prisoner who's like in this dungeon, and then they send a woman, like, I can't remember if they're in a church or something. Anyway, so a woman winds up in there and she gets raped by this dude, and she has a kid. And the kid, because basically it's a result of a rape from a criminal or something like that, like it's an affront to God. So he has the curse, and the curse is that he turns into the werewolf. And the makeup effects on it are absolutely amazing. But why I remember it so much is that Oliver Reed didn't act like he was in a genre film. He acted like he was doing Hamlet. You know what I'm saying? Like he gave that movie his all, like he did in his entire career.
Right.
Holy cow. That performance is so powerful to me. It's something that's been burned in my mind since I was a child watching that on VHS.
Wow. So as I'm watching the viewers' comments, I realized that, yeah, I really have not through the years gone out and watched a lot of werewolf movies. Because there's a lot here that are being brought up that I don't know. So, and I guess my list sort of explains it too. Inadvertently, I'm watching a film for a different reason. They just happen to have werewolves in it. So my last one may be a little controversial and may not be considered mainstream, but somebody did mention it. Might have been Gustavo. I don't remember. Underworld with Kate Beckinsale.
Okay.
I really like that movie. Well, mainly because it had vampires in it, but I like the interaction between the vampires and the Lycans, and that whole evolving, there's a whole community here. There's, that we don't see, and this is how they relate to each other, and obviously great action scenes and all that good stuff. So,
yeah. I'm not quite a fan. I'm gonna be honest with you, of the Underworld films, but I haven't seen them since they first came out. I don't know. I actually only ever watched the first one. But I remember the effects on it look really good, like kind of like in Van Helsing, like the wolf effects are pretty cool for that era. Yeah. Doing.
I mean, I take another look at it. It's the sequels were not as good, but they extended and kind of filled in the gaps of the storyline. You know what I mean? So that was kind of worth watching if you enjoyed the first one.
Underworld was a big thing, man. Big toys, like the franchise blew up for a while. Like that was a big deal for Kate Beckinsale too, man.
Yeah, it was.
All right. I'll just finish off with what I got here then. They made at least 5 of those movies. Holy cow.
I think they're right.
All right.
I think Gustavo's right. Yeah, there were 5.
Got to give a shout out to Werewolf of London. That's the original OG. The original one that predates the Wolfman. It's from like 1932 or 33, something like that. And it's way different because he has to he gets this flower in Tibet or something, and that's what turns him to the werewolf. It's weird. Or the flower cures him. It's weird because they didn't know what werewolf mythology was yet. They hadn't been created in the Wolfman. Dog Soldiers is one I just watched for the first time recently. I think you would like this one, Rex, because it's more like an action film. It's about these soldiers, these British soldiers who wind up getting stuck in a cabin surrounded by werewolves. So it plays out more like Evil Dead meets Aliens, but with werewolves, right? So it's all the characters are cool, they're funny, and then the effects in it for its day are pretty good, I think. So that was a good one I just recently watched. Bad Moon is not that bad of a movie. It's a 90s werewolf film that's got a great werewolf effect. Like, it's really, really solid. It's got some shaky bits too, but there are moments in it that are super gnarly. So I like that. And I do got to give a shout out. It's on my list, y'all, to the wolf guy from the Monster Squad. I think that the Monster Squad has one of the best werewolves in a movie, and yes, the Wolfman does have nards. So definitely love that movie. Also, there's great werewolf stuff in the movie Trick or Treat. Not the one with Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne, but the more recent one with Anna Paquin playing a Little Red Riding Hood type character in one of the stories. So those are some of my absolute favorite werewolf films, and some of Rex's as well. I think Rex has given us one definitely to check out, Wolf Guy. I think I'm going to revisit Underworld at some point. And I think you need to rewatch Wolfman. Just enjoy it. And you might like Dog Soldiers.
So Jake Brown brings up one that I did see, Wolf, starring Jack Nicholson. Why? Because it was Jack Nicholson. But that one wasn't very well received, I remember.
Yeah, that one's a weird one. I don't know. I remember watching that. I remember watching that as a kid, and obviously it wasn't made for kids. It's more of like a drama, right? It's like a Mike Nichols film or something too. And it plays out more like that. Then visually, though, when he's starting to transform, and he has one of those real slow transformations, right? I like the look of him with some of that wolf effect. Then I remember being a kid, and like all of a sudden he's like a dog, and it's like a real dog or something, like, and I'm just like, what? This is so weird. Like, I prefer my werewolves to look more like men, like wolf men, like people, right? But at the same time, American Werewolf in London, you cannot deny how awesome that is. But at the same time, it was very limiting when they had the big thing out there. They can only do so much with it.
I mean, I think that it was probably one of Jack Nicholson's weaker performances. He's done a lot of great stuff. I don't know. Maybe it was a script. I don't know what it was. It just didn't fit, and it was widely panned, and it just felt like a little, we got Nicholson. So, we don't got to work too hard at the movie.
Yeah. Right.
You kind of felt like that when you walked out, like, okay. It was nice to see Jack Nicholson, but that wasn't so good. But the vampire one, I think, will be interesting because there have been. I just feel like there have been more of them. Obviously, the topic has just been covered more generally, more broadly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're werewolves. That's what we thought. And tonight, don't forget, bonus episode of Horror Fest 2022. We'll be talking about Werewolf by Night at 8 p.m. tonight. Tomorrow night on Dylan's Horror Show, we're talking about Tales from the Crypt Demon Night. And then on Monday night for PCP Movie Night, we're doing Audition from Takashi Miike. Very excited for this slew of movies this weekend. Rex, what's coming up, man? Why don't you tell everybody?
All right. So tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern on The Experience, our YouTube channel, Nick will be here with his original art show, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern again. And then Robbie and I will be back on Monday on our channel, The Experience, the XP. And couple hours, me, Kim, John, I believe Mariano's going to join us again, and we're going to have other creators through the coming weeks that are going to join us, so that'll be super cool. And then of course Wednesday, me and John will be back with AR Comics Alec for a couple hours from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, talking about anything that comes to mind.
Heck yeah. And got some great collectibles available too. So
absolutely.
Heck yeah. Rex, thank you for joining us. Thank you out there in the chat for joining us. On behalf of everybody here at PCP, Pop, Pop, Boom Station.